Hey there, what's up? My name is Ryan. In this video, we're looking at the board game Welcome To. Welcome To is a little game where players will be flipping over cards that have different numbers on them and attempting to fit those numbers on their own player sheets. Now, it fits into the category of games that we call roll and write, which typically means you roll dice and then somehow you take those results and you add them to your own player board. Technically, you can call this a flip and write because we're actually flipping cards over and trying to fit those numbers onto our board. The basic mechanism is trying to fit as many houses as you can onto each street, while also continuing to go upwards in numbers. For example, you have to go 1, the next house has to be number 2. You could skip to number 5, but then you can't go back then and fill in 3 and 4 later. Now, every time you select a card, you are selecting a house of that number to put into a spot. You also select a card beside it that represents some sort of special bonus, typically something like a fence or something you can like fence off certain areas of your town to try to make groups of houses. Players score off these groups of houses. They also score by other things like sometimes you take park bonuses up there, sometimes you put houses in the houses that have swimming pools and things like that. All right, let's start with some positives here. First of all, it just looks really good. The box looks really inviting. I think one of the reasons it's probably sold pretty well is people just see that box. It just kind of screams like, hey, family weight, lighter complexity game. And it is. It's just a very nice looking player mat you get. Filling in the houses is pretty satisfying to put the pen to paper and like try to get those rows to work out, and just the whole presentation is pretty on the cute side of things for sure. Also, it's not that heavy, so this really is a game that you can teach someone really quickly. Just like go over the rules, you kind of flip your first houses, and pretty quickly if you say, okay, I think the numbers are 1 through 15, or I think 1 through 15, and you see you have 10 houses in a row you could fit in. You see an 8 flip over, okay, that probably should go in the middle. You see a 15 flip over, okay, so the 15 probably should go on this side. So the basic gameplay of this is pretty simple. It's fairly straightforward what you want to do at first, which makes it a good game to teach to people. There are deeper strategies as far as like, okay, I want to maybe put this 12 here and split the difference, or I'm going for, there's bonuses on the side I haven't mentioned yet. In the first one, they get certain bonuses, get more points. So, maybe 3 sets of 3 houses. But the basic gameplay is really, really, really welcoming, really easy to get into. It's also interesting that the 3 houses you can choose from, maybe you have numbers 7, 6, and 12, are paired with a random back of the card goal. So for example, you might be going for the bottom row, doing really well, but you really want to get the parks there because those parks are really valuable. But maybe on your top row, you're putting a few houses up there and you're just choosing not to go for any of those parks. So the parks bonuses really, really, really escalate as you get higher and higher up. So it kind of gives you a little bit of that tactics like, I really want to save this spot for the park. I think another one of these numbers will come out. So some of that strategy is definitely there too. One thing I think I want to mention that's a pretty cool positive is everyone's choosing from the same set of cards. So the game moves along pretty quickly. You flip over a card or 3 cards and everyone can choose from those and add them to their city. That's a pretty cool feature. I also think it's cool because it keeps it from this whole, oh, I just rolled once and I lost because I rolled so bad. Everyone's deciding from the same pool of cards. Everyone has the same opportunities in the game. It's just how are you taking those cards and applying them to your city. Okay, so now for some things I don't like as much about Welcome To. Just like with the positives, I start with my biggest positive first. I'm gonna start with my biggest negative first. Ironically, this is actually a positive for some people, but for me it ends up being a pretty big negative, in that it has a very, very low amount of player interaction. Everyone has their player sheet in front of them, you're filling in your boxes, and there's really nothing that anyone can do to your board. They can't write things on your board, they can't, scribble, whatever it would be. You have the same amount of cards. It's great that it keeps the game moving. It keeps it very fast paced. But there's not a lot out there. There's not a central board that you're trying to block each other from. The only little bit of player interaction is being the first one to those goals. There's a few goals. You get to them first, you get a few more points. But other than that, the player interaction is really, really low. It's definitely a game that you can get around the table and you don't even know what the other players are doing. Someone could have finished their 6th house within a gated area or fenced in area and you don't really even know. It doesn't really even matter because you can't do anything to affect their board. They can't really do anything to affect your board. Again, the only thing that really matters, I guess, is the timing of the 3 special cards. That's a pretty big negative to me, especially a game that if I played it the first time, I didn't notice it, right? You just are playing the board, you're really focused on that. And the more you play a game like this, it's just, you're trying to hone into your perfect strategy, see in front of you, get everything filled in the right way. And I kind of get the sense that we could have just all done this separately and then, compared scores and saw who won. One of the negative here is maybe a little on the light side for my taste. It's not a huge deal, but maybe it's a little bit on the, flip the cards over, see what happens. You can kind of mathematically figure out a pretty good strategy from the get-go. Okay, there's 12 spaces here. I'm really going for this one. You can go for those little things, but it's light enough that you kind of do your strategy, maybe make a plan, and then you hope the right cards flip out. Again, it's also maybe that lack of player interaction makes so there's not a lot of curveballs that come at you. Really, the only thing is hopefully the deck flips over what you want to flip over. Now, I don't mean to sound all negative of the game. I thought it was really cool. I wanted to review this game, so I wanted to share it with a lot of people because I feel like some people might not know that this type of game even exists. I think board games maybe are only Settlers of Catan where you're gaining resources. I think they're only like chess where you're trying to move around and have to think for 20 minutes on every move to make the perfect move to capture your opponent. If that's kind of your idea of a board game, I think this is a great kind of breath of fresh air to say, hey, like, we're building a nice little city. It looks really modern. It's pretty new. And you're just nicely kind of filling in things. It's a great game. People want to sort of sit around the table and chat. And it's sort of like, you know, it's kind of fun to do in the middle of the table, but it's just a different perspective than these intense strategy games, or maybe some people think of it as board games. So I think it's a great game. I think it's fun to play. For me personally, it dies away pretty quickly after a few plays of it, but I can see people getting really into it because, again, just that lack of investment to get out. It's not going to be this huge setup. It's not going to be this big brain burner where you're going to end up the game just exhausted. So if you're kind of into the lighter side of games, I think it's a really good game that's light, and not only just light, but it doesn't give these huge intense decisions where, you know, for example, a game like checkers could be light and simple to play, but you also could be frustrated because you keep, you know, getting creamed at it because the other person's better than you. The solo mode's actually pretty good. Actually, a game like this, since it's in a way almost a solo game already, the solo mode is fun. The solo mode is, like, in my opinion, just as fun as the multiplayer mode because the game was kind of already built to be a solo game. All right, I hope you found that video helpful. If you did, of course, hitting the like button down below helps out. Also, subscribe to the channel, see a lot of playthroughs and reviews like this. I'll see you next time.